Well, hello and welcome. My name is Sheila Wilson, and I am a registered nurse, president of Stop Healthcare Violence, and a host on Whine and Cheese. That's Passionate World Talk Radio. CEO Lillian Caldwell and station manager Jeanne White. As the president of Stop Healthcare Violence, we have had many episodes of Whine and Cheese, and we're trying to bring attention to the public about the violence that the healthcare workers encounter as they do their job. We also talk frequently about the abuse and disrespect that the healthcare workers are experiencing because of the lack of personal protective equipment and being short-staffed. We at Stop Healthcare Violence are very concerned about the nurses, their lack of personal protective equipment, the unsafe masks that have been sterilized with chemicals, the amount of the sick patients they are taken care of. They have been moved out of their homes to protect their own families, and they are in dorm rooms, rooming with coworkers so that they can take care of their patients. What is going to happen when this is over? Will depression, PTSD, suicide, and lung disease happen? We need to continue to talk about it, and tonight's guest is Betty Ann Lauria. She is accredited and certified in emotional freedom techniques. She is an EFT practitioner. Hello, Betty Ann, and thank you for coming on the show. Can you tell us about EFT and how it can help with the problems of the nurses might face or are facing?
I can certainly talk about that. Yes, Sheila, and I just want to first say thank you so much for having me on. And I was so moved to hear you speak that time at Patty's class that I knew that EFT could help people with anxiety and depression and overwhelm. And I knew that the nurses were suffering, but I had no idea to what extent. And so I'm really glad to be sharing what I know about EFT and how I know that it works. So as you already said, it does stand for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And please stop me if you have any questions while I'm talking. But people also know it as tapping. And they know it as tapping because you literally do tap on meridian endpoints while talking about an issue that is troubling you. Some people like to call it acupuncture without the needles, or a reboot to your system, because that's really what it is. We get stuck on emotions and stresses, and when we start tapping and talking about it, it seems to relieve the pressure. And what this means is, for those of you who may not know what meridians are, they are energy channels that run throughout our bodies, and their endpoints are located at various points along the body. So when we do EFT tapping, we focus on just a few of those, 7 points, mostly around the neck, head and shoulders, and top of the head. So what happens is when you send out a signal by tapping an end of a meridian point, it's like sending an electromagnetic signal. It is sending an electromagnetic signal to the amygdala, which most of your listeners probably know. That's part of the brain that controls the emotions. And when you do that signal, it sends a calming message that says, this isn't a physical threat, you can relax. You might still have the memory, but it doesn't trigger the emotion anymore. And that's essentially how it works. There is now solid research that shows EFT lowers cortisol levels, which not only makes you feel better, but also improves the way your body functions. So are you with me so far? Do we have any questions, or do you want to stop me, or shall I just go on?
No, I think what you're talking about is extremely fascinating. I don't really understand like the meridians. I know that yoga has all sorts of points, and Patty Cage talks about points. And maybe if you talked a little bit more about meridians.
Well, I'm not a meridian expert. However, I know that the certain meridians are connected to, first of all, they're all connected. There are the same meridians on the left side of the body as there are on the right side. So when we're tapping, it doesn't matter which hand we use, or we can use both hands, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later. But, for example, there's a point underneath your eye, right on the bone, on both sides, each eye, and that connects to your stomach. It's called the stomach meridian. And then there's another meridian right on your collarbone towards your shoulder. And if you press on that right now, if you just start at if you want to find it, you could start at the little U in your sternum there, go down a couple of inches, and then move to either side, to the left or to the right. And you might find what they call the sore point. It very often is sore when you start to massage it a little bit, and that shows you that there could be a little blockage there, nothing to really worry about. But if you keep massaging it, you'll notice it goes away. And that's the lung meridian right there. And one of the points for EFT is just a little bit in further, right in those little kind of indentations there. And another meridian point is somewhere along the knee, which connects to your kidney. They're just all over the body. And the ones that we use are the very top of the head. And there are meridian charts all over the internet, so you can see where these actually hook up with. I don't have all that knowledge at my fingertips. I just know how they work, so I don't know what each meridian stands for. But one is at the very tip of your eyebrow, where the eyebrow meets the bridge of the nose. You can press on that a little. Another is at the end of the eyebrow, then under the eye, as I mentioned, between the nose and the upper lip, the crease in your chin, the collarbone point, which I was talking about earlier, the one that goes under your arm about 4 inches below your armpit, and then once again we end up at the top of the head, which in Chinese medicine is called the Bai Hui, and they related to the 7th chakra, which is your connection to the spirit in your life. So those are the meridian endpoints that we use in EFT. And it's been shown, as I said, that when you tap on those, it does lower the cortisol because it does send a signal to the amygdala, which is pretty fascinating to me. I was blown away when I first heard about it. What happens is we're all walking around with low levels of stress all the time now in this modern world of ours. I mean, we're always getting news or something's happening, and that's not good because our brains don't know the difference between real and present danger and, say, a memory that's triggering you or getting stuck in a traffic jam. Our amygdala is sending out a signal that, oops, something bad's happening. Send all the energy to our body so we can fight or we can run and get the heck out of there. But if we don't fight or flee, then all that adrenaline and cortisol is just floating around, compromising our immune system, our digestive system, just about everything. It just lowers the efficiency of how we're working. So when an EFT practitioner asks a client to bring to mind a specific situation that's causing the stress, we tap on it while we're talking about it. And often we can get to the root cause of a particular emotion, for example, a limiting belief in our subconscious mind or a very unpleasant memory and definitely PTSD. The Veterans Administration is now using EFT on veterans with very good results. You may not know this. There's a project called the Veterans Stress Project, and you can look that up and find how they're working with veterans using EFT and getting great results.
That is awesome.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, and they started looking at it seriously in 2017, so I know that it's just gotten better since then. Nick and Jessica Ortner have started a foundation. They're the people that I first heard about EFT from. They're originally from Newtown, Connecticut, where that terrible shooting happened, and they work with students there with PTSD. They have a foundation working with those people, students and families and teachers. It's also used on weight loss. Dr. Peter Stapleton has research out on doing studies to help people with weight loss. And Dr. David Feinstein is another scientist who's published some studies that you can find online about now the science is catching up to what the ancient Chinese always knew. So this is wonderful.
That is awesome.
That's how it goes. I first heard about it from the Ortners when I was just listening to an online healing summit where they were talking about alternative therapies. And they were talking about this new thing called EFT, and it's really not that new. It's been around since the 70s, really. I started tapping along with them, and I just felt like it helped me with some issues that I was dealing with. I couldn't believe it. And so, of course, I had to find out more about it, and I tried it out on my husband, you know, how we do things like that. We find out about something new, and then we have to check it out, and, oh, come on, sit down, be my experiment here. And he was also moved by it. And so I was approaching retirement. I'm a teacher. I'm a retired teacher. And I decided this could be my next career. So that's when I decided to get certified. I just think
that's awesome. Now, Betty Ann, how long would tapping take if I wanted to get some tapping done?
Well, if you were going to work with me, our first session probably would take about an hour, maybe even longer, because you really need to talk about the situation, and we find that in EFT, specific language works the best. You can certainly tap on a general situation, and I certainly would love to do a general tapping now for anyone who's listening and for you, just to demonstrate, and it would help. It would definitely relieve stress that somebody might be feeling. But to really get to the root cause of a problem that someone might be having, an issue, it could take anywhere from one session to maybe continuing sessions, because sometimes you just uncover other things. One of the beautiful things about EFT is it speaks directly to your subconscious. And while we're tapping, thoughts and memories and feelings may come up, and people have these aha moments where, wow, I thought I forgot all about that, you know, and it's some memory back in their childhood that might be the root cause of what they're going through right now. So we try and peel away the layers and get someone down to almost a zero level of stress, as close to that as we can.
Do you think that we could do a quick version of EFT?
Absolutely, we can do one. We can just talk about a general emotion, if you like, and you can be my client. You can repeat what I say and follow along, and anyone who's listening can follow along with us. I'll direct you to the points, because even though we might be tapping on something that you, Sheila, would like to work on, there's something in EFT called borrowing benefits. And when you work with a group of people, everyone who's in that room and tapping along gets a benefit from it.
Wow.
So it's really
great.
And the other thing is you don't need to worry about being exactly on the point, because EFT is also very forgiving. As long as you're in the general vicinity, it's going to do you some good.
Awesome. Let's give that a shot.
All right. What would you like to tap about?
Well, how about the frustration that I get because I'm so concerned about these nurses, and they get abused and they get assaulted. And I feel like I should be doing more to bring it to the public's attention, because people don't know. They don't believe that this is truly happening. So I guess just plain one word, frustration. Is that all right?
Okay. Oh, absolutely. And some of the things that you've just said, the specific words that you were using, we can also put in there as well. And can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh,
can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Just my phone was doing a little funny thing there for a bit. Sorry about that. Yes, and I can use some of the specific language that you used just now while you were describing what was bothering you the most about this frustration because of your concern for the nurses. So what we do is we start with what's called a setup statement. That is the first signal to your brain that we're going to be working on this specific problem. And I'm going to ask you right now to first take a nice deep breath, and everyone who's listening can please follow along. Take a nice deep cleansing breath and let it out. I'm going to ask you, Sheila, on a scale of 1 to 10, how frustrated would you say you are right now?
Probably on a scale of 7.
Okay. I'm going to write down the 7, or you might just want to keep that in mind. That's something that we do with EFT as well. We ask for a level, and we see what happens after the first couple of rounds. So I'm going to ask you to take one hand, it doesn't matter which, and with your other hand, using maybe 3 fingers, tap along what can be called the karate chop point of your hand. Like that would be between the knuckle of your pinky and your wrist. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So you're tapping
knuckle
on that.
Of my, okay.
The knuckle, yeah, so between just the side of your hand. Think of it as the side of your hand, where you might hit a board if you were trying to break a board in karate.
Oh, yeah, I was just doing that.
Good. Okay. Since I can't see you, that's the best way to describe it. So just repeat after me. Even though I feel so much frustration.
Even though I feel so much frustration.
And concern for all those nurses.
And concern for all those nurses.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
And how I feel.
And how I feel.
And we usually do that 2 more times. So even though I feel this frustration and concern.
Well, hang on just a minute.
Sure.
Even though I'm sorry, repeat that again?
Sure. Even though I feel this frustration and concern.
Even though I feel this frustration and concern.
For all these nurses out there.
For all these nurses out there.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
And how I feel.
And how I feel.
All right. So that was only twice, but that's okay. Let's move on. So now take two fingers of your right or left hand, it doesn't matter, and find where your eyebrow meets the bridge of your nose. So the very beginning of your eyebrow, basically.
Okay.
And tap along there.
Okay.
And repeat what I say. This frustration and concern.
This frustration and concern.
Okay, moving along the eyebrow to the end of the eyebrow now. Tapping there.
Okay.
I'm so concerned about these nurses.
I am so concerned about these nurses.
Moving along to under the eye on the bone, tapping there. So much abuse.
So much abuse.
I'm so worried about them.
I'm so worried about them.
Now under the nose, between the nose and the lips, tapping there.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could do more.
I wish I could do more.
Under the lip and above the chin, like right in the crease there. I'm so frustrated I can't do more.
I am so frustrated I can't do more.
Now on the collarbone, just anywhere on where you can feel the little ridges of your collarbone there. I'm worried about abuse and assault.
I'm worried about abuse and assault.
And now under your arm, about 4 inches below your armpit. I want to do so much more. I'm so frustrated.
I want to do so much more. I am so frustrated.
Top of the head. I'm so frustrated with this situation.
I am so frustrated with this situation.
Okay, take a deep breath. And let it out. That was 1 round of tapping. And
wow.
Normally, if I was working with you now, I would say, and I am, so I will say, think of this frustration that you have for the nurses right now. What level would you say it was?
Well, actually, I feel when I first spoke to you, I was very frustrated, and I think this has lowered it. But I don't know if it's because I'm talking to you. But I don't feel like, that edge that you get.
Yes, and that's what EFT does. It takes the edge off. Sometimes, I will tell you this, sometimes a first couple of rounds of tapping makes a client even more stressed out because they're talking about it and it brings it to the surface. And that's perfectly normal because it means the energy is starting to flow now because, sometimes you have to highlight a problem before you can actually work with it. So sometimes it goes up, but yours went down, so that's a good sign. The other thing that I would say to a client right now is, did anything come up in your mind while we were tapping, any memories or any thoughts?
Not really, but I've thought about this so often that I wonder if I just was concentrating a little bit more.
Right.
Trying to do right.
Yeah, we were working hard on trying to make sure that you got the points right because you can't see me, so that's a little bit of a pullback there. But the other thing that I ask clients very often is when you think about your frustration, do you feel it? I have them scan their bodies, and do you feel this frustration anywhere in your body?
I feel it all over. I can feel my mouth getting dry. I can, especially when I'm working on something and I'm trying to get it out and I'm trying to tell people, and they don't seem to understand. And then that makes it a little bit harder because I want them to understand that this is what truly is happening. Do you know how unsafe your nurses are?
It's very interesting that it's your throat that you said because the throat chakra, as Patty will tell you, is all about communication and making yourself heard and making yourself understood. So it is not surprising that when you're trying to get your point across to people that your throat goes dry. And it's interesting, isn't it, how the body really does talk to us. I would, in another round of tapping, we could, if you want to do another quick round, we could add that to our language there about you feel dry in your throat. I feel so dry in my throat. I can't communicate. That kind of thing.
Well, we could do that.
Okay, so let's go on a karate chop point to start with.
Okay, I'm all set. Yep.
Even though I feel this dryness in my throat because I can't communicate.
Even though I feel this dryness in my throat because I can't communicate.
I completely accept myself and how I feel.
I completely accept myself and how I feel.
Even though I get so frustrated because they don't understand me.
Even though I got so frustrated because they don't understand me.
And my throat gets dry. I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
And how I feel. So back to the eyebrow point, that very first point there at the bridge of the nose and the eyebrow. I'm so frustrated. Okay, side of the eye. They're not listening. Under the eye, my throat gets so dry. Under the nose, I talk, but they don't listen. Chin, I talk, but they don't understand. Collarbone, I'm so frustrated. Staying on the collarbone for a bit, and I'm so concerned about my nurses. And take a deep breath here. And under the arm, I want to do more. Top of the head, but they don't listen and they're not understanding.
and they're not listening.
Okay. Take a deep breath. How does it feel when you say, I'm so frustrated and my throat is so dry?
Now that had a different. I wasn't as calm when I first did it, but I think because those words that were added, that that I do get frustrated because they see me talking, they can't hear me, or they don't want to hear me, and nothing changes.
So we would continue then with nothing changes. They don't want to hear me and nothing changes. You can see how the language of the client is really what's so important about EFT, and that's why I'm so glad that you were so open to be giving me all these great things to say while we're tapping, because it's really all about the client. I'm just here as a channel, to kind of get it out and help you. So what else came up then? Anything else? And you see, adding the body symptoms really helps a lot when you're doing EFT. And I think that was very important that you told me about the throat. What do you think? How do you feel?
Oh, this is different, and I really wasn't I wasn't expecting to get so frustrated.
Oh.
I was frustrated to begin with. I'm trying to, get my stuff together for our next talk with the nurses, and then it's like the nurses are great people, and they really say what's on their mind. But to hear what's happening, I haven't been in the ER for a few years now, so I understand completely what they're talking about, except I was never really in a pandemic.
Right.
And to know that they don't have the equipment that they should have, to realize that they don't have the staff that they need most of the time, it's just so frustrating. And I know that if I was still working in the ER, I would be right there, and it would be awful. But anyhow.
I know how you feel, because that's how I feel about when I talk to teachers, because teaching has always been tough, just like nursing has always been tough, but neither one of us has ever experienced working in these conditions, and so I know what you're feeling. It's a frustrating feeling, and you just want to help as much as you can. And I would love to help the nurses if they are open to, if they're feeling really frustrated and depressed and need a little relief. I would love to give them my information if they want to get in touch with me. I would offer them some service as a gift, because I'm just so thrilled at what they do and so in awe of what they do every day out there on the front lines.
They are really, it used to be the doctors were the ones that got all the kudos, but it's the nurses that are out there. They leave their families, they go live in hotel rooms and dorm rooms, live with coworkers so that they don't infect their families. And then they work. They work 8-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts. It's tough. And they work 3 or 4 days a week with those things, 5 days a week, get called in because of sick calls.
So do you think – oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. No,
they're working with – the nurses are working with strangers. It's not like they're doing a job for their family.
Right.
The nurses are nurses, and just like you said, it's for the clients while the nurses work for the patients. And that's what's important to them. So why does all this stuff happen? Why don't they have the right equipment? Why do they have to wear the same mask all the time?
It's terrible.
But
it's terrible. But do you think
that
if they had a tool like EFT, that it would help a little bit with some of their frustrations and their emotional stresses that they have to deal with?
I think if the nurses are willing to do it and to really, really pay attention to what you're saying, it would help them immensely. They have, I don't know if you heard me say this before, but one of the nurses, opened up a closet and found a lot of N95 masks. And they were all excited until they opened up the box, which they thought were brand new, and found out they were all old.
I think I did hear you say that.
There's so much going on, and there's so much confusion. But I have your brochure in front of me, and
Great.
If you would like to tell us on the radio your email address or how they can contact you.
Okay.
That would be awesome.
That's great. My email is Mariposa EFT. I'll spell that MARIPOSA EFT. And that's just a Spanish word that means butterfly, if anyone already knows that. And I chose that because emotional freedom techniques, it can transform your life. And butterflies are a symbol of transformation. So that's why I chose it. So it's mariposaeft@gmail.com. And I'll give you my phone number as well. It's 508-566-0386. So that's 508. That's on the brochure, and yeah. But
and now, suppose somebody, once they hear us, Jeannie White, the station manager, will put it up on several stations, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Spreaker.
Okay.
And we'll put it on Stop Healthcare Violence. We have a website, and we're on Facebook. But if somebody got in touch with you, could you do it virtually?
Yes. We could do it over the phone like we did just now, or we could do a Zoom. I've done many sessions on Zoom, or FaceTime. But as you saw, it works this way as well. I prefer to see someone the first time I've ever worked with them, but it does work with a regular phone call. But I also want to mention that I am on Facebook as well. So if they just search Mariposa EFT on Facebook, you'll find my page there. And both videos are there as well that show how to do it. And there's many examples online of how to do EFT as far as knowing where the points are. But as far as working with your own particular issue, it's really good to work with someone. So I would love to help some people out. I really would.
Well, I think once all of this, pandemic is over, I think we're going to have some issues with the depression and the PTSD. And
yes,
suicide is going up.
Well, we shouldn't wait till the pandemic is over, because you can sometimes handle things as they're ongoing before they get buried in there,
Yes.
And that's always hard. Sometimes it's hard to be aware of an issue. You're just getting your job done and you're plowing full steam ahead, and then you get home and you realize, wow, I'm really angry about something that happened today, and that's when you first get to think about it, and maybe that's when you can do a little tapping for yourself.
Yeah, that would be terrific. Yeah. I think that's exactly what they need. And now that you have been on our show, this is great. This is another tool that they can use. And
I'm really glad.
Is there anything else that you would like to say?
I just want to say thank you so much. I think EFT is wonderful. It's the best thing about EFT is that it's really gentle and there are no side effects.
Right, you're right.
Yeah, it's a wonderful tool, and I'm very passionate about it, as you can tell. So I really appreciate your letting me come on here and talk about this.
Well, that's quite all right. I appreciate you coming on because I think it's going to be a great tool for the nurses and all the healthcare workers. I talk, specifically about the nurses, but we're all a team. There's medical assistants, the doctors, the housekeepers, the X-ray techs, everything, and they're all going through the same thing. So I will end this session, and I'm going to thank everybody, and especially Lillian Caldwell, the CEO, for allowing us time on the radio station, and station manager Jeanne White, which will do a blog, and she does all the work behind the scenes for us. And as I said before, if you miss listening here, we are on iHeartRadio, YouTube, Spreaker, and you'll hear it on Heal the Healer on Stop Healthcare Violence Facebook once it gets up. And thank you very much, Betty Ann, for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. Have a good night.
Thank you.